joining us on this. Oh yeah, I'm recording. I've got to record. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you for joining us on this Friday morning. We are here today to tell you a little bit about Class of 68. This is a project of 68 pupils that we have been working on for the last 12 months, and nearly to the day, 12 months ago, Callie Banner-Smith joined us. So we thought we would share some information, talk about what we've been up to, and talk a little bit about the impact that we've had on hopefully some individuals and some of our clients. So as an introduction, I'm just going to start sharing my screen, and hopefully this is going to be easy. Let's cross your fingers.
Come on.
That should hopefully now share. Okay, hopefully you can see all that. So, as an introduction to myself, my name is Abby. I am the founder of 68 People. I founded the business in 2019 and initially as a recruitment business, but actually my background was in recruitment and training. So for many years, I headed up the training function of Revolution Bars, then it was called Inventive Leisure, and so became pretty obsessed really with management training and what you could deliver and what impact it could have really, and really being able to measure the impact that training could have on management performance and on retention and on happiness, I suppose. And I will let Callie Banner-Smith introduce yourself. Go for it, Cal.
Morning, everybody. So my name's Callie. I'm the head coach here at Class 68. And like we just said, 12 months ago, almost to the day, definitely to the week, I joined 68 People to start Class 68 with them. And in my former life, I've done nothing but hospitality, to be honest. I don't know how I'd do anything else. But I spent a lot of time as a head of training for a large restaurant and bar group. I was responsible for developing and delivering training for companies like The Alchemist, New York Trading Company, Australasia, Black House Restaurants. I've designed training across the board for all roles and levels. And I always just took real pleasure in the operational side of things. I love making training practical and accessible and impactful and having sort of everyday, making an everyday difference, I guess, to people's roles.
So when Callie and I met about 12 months ago, we really wanted to make sure that we were delivering something. We wanted to expand our recruitment offer and really deliver something that was relevant to the industry. So in terms of where 68 People, we wanted to make sure that we were falling in line with our current kind of purpose, vision and values. So our purpose as an organisation is to revolutionise the industry. And I think that really adding that training function to our recruitment function is really helping us do that. Everything that we do, we kind of cross-check against this purpose. If we don't feel as though it's impacting or revolutionising the industry, we don't want to do it. We have a company vision to make sure that we are creating the biggest hospitality network on the planet and using it as a force for good. So offering people the skills to make sure that they can be a force for good within their own site or within their own company. Everything we do has to be in line with our values. We want to make sure that we are hospitalitarian and making sure that everything we do is kind of elevated and is around kindness and selflessness. We need to make sure that we're experts. You know, we can't sit here and deliver any kind of management training unless we're coming from a place of expertise. And I think that was one of the challenges that we found when we were looking at the management training that existed, is that it wasn't really bespoke for hospitality. We are not shady, which maybe goes without saying, but certainly in the recruitment perspective, shadiness does come up quite a lot in the sector. So, and Northern Warrior spirits, making sure that we that kind of our hard graft and grit comes across. We're all ex-operators, and I think that comes across in our training. And we are one team, making sure that we're doing everything for the benefit of all. So when we started this project 12 months ago, the background of it was really we were coming out of COVID. there were a lot of management leavers, especially at junior level, and we wanted to make sure that we were talking to operators, to operations directors, to ops teams, and to people teams as to what were the real challenges that the managers were facing and that companies were facing, so that whatever we delivered made sure it addressed those challenges. So initially we did two things. We took a load of people directors and ops directors out for lunch. I'm pretty good at taking people out for lunch. And kind of got to the bottom of, right, what is it? What are the gaps? You know, there've been a lot of people very quickly promoted from junior positions. And like I say, a lot of leavers. So people that were kind of had a lot of skill gaps. The second thing we did was a survey where we asked around 250 managers their side of the story, really, around training. And what we identified, you can see on this slide, so some facts that we pulled from our survey. So 78% of managers thought that their employer should invest more in management training. 77% of managers thought that better training would make them stay longer. And that was really interesting to us, because if we can impact retention directly, then that would be revolutionising. And then 82% of managers said that more training would better equip them to retain their teams. And this was a time, 12 months ago, where we were really struggling to keep our people as an industry. So we believed that if we could deliver something impactful, that we would be able to, solve a problem, an indirect problem, really, by helping hourly people stay on board. The 5 areas that we took from our research were gaps in leadership skills, so pretty junior managers being asked to lead teams, junior managers stepping up quite quickly, and people coming out of COVID with a lack of confidence even in their own ability. We identified challenges around recruitment and interviewing. There was no real interview training in the marketplace, and it was very much across the board. Just sit down with that person and see what you think. And we thought that deserved some kind of structured approach. From a training perspective at site level, there wasn't a lot of consistency, and there was a real feeling that people had this overwhelming feeling of so much training, so much to deliver to people, and actually we wanted to be able to give people the skills of, okay, actually you can just do this little tiny piece of training on the job and make it really accessible. Giving feedback was a real challenge. We had some, operators with quite junior managers, and had a real fear of people leaving, and a real fear that if they gave direct feedback, that people would leave. So it just wasn't happening. And that was, in turn, creating quite an engaged workforce. And then this piece around self-development, we came out with a lot of a new mindset, really, from COVID around well-being and the ability to kind of take time out and make sure that you're in a position to become a high performer. So we wanted to create something around that. So we spent about 3-4 months creating what we believe are solutions to these problems that we identified. And over the last year, we have delivered sessions. We delivered over 100 workshops now in different formats. So some we've delivered publicly. So the idea of that is where people could book onto as a delegate rate, book onto a course, maybe more suited to an independent business, but they've not got 15 managers to put through a program. And we wanted to make sure our training was accessible to all different sizes of companies. So we've created it publicly. We've done individual workshops where people can just say, okay, I've got this problem, I want this solution. And then we've created full leadership programs. So I'm going to let Callie talk you through these kind of 5 solutions that we put together, and she's going to talk you through, as the person that delivers all these, is going to talk you through each one. Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, I'm going to talk through kind of the workshops that we're currently delivering, a little bit of detail, and also a little bit of the impact and the feedback that we've received so far. So we start. I'll do them in the order that we complete them as part of the programme, I guess. So when we do a full leadership programme, we would always start with insights discovery. And it's always a massive hit. It's a super interactive session. It's quite a long day, but it never feels it because there's so much activity and so much interaction between the team. It's also really simple and accessible. It's really, the theory is very easy to remember, so it sticks with people and they use it after the session. You know, it doesn't require loads of revision. You don't have to keep coming back to it. It's really simple and it's very visual. And I think what I really love about Insights, particularly against a lot of other psychometrics that I've perhaps done or experienced, is this doesn't feel like it puts you in a box. It doesn't sort of say this is what you are and you can't change that. It sort of allows you to explore what your personality type is and what those characteristics that you inherently have might be. And it doesn't tell you need to change anything, but what it does say is that this is how somebody else might perceive you. And that's important, that's their reality. So you've got to meet that somewhere. And it really, you know, we spend the day exploring how you can respond and adapt and connect to somebody. So that you can be more effective. And I think in a leadership context, that's incredibly powerful. So it works on a 4 energy model. So these 4 colour energies. And it discusses, we discussed the fact that everybody has access to all 4 of these. So when I said it doesn't put you in a box, it tells you what your preferences might be, but it doesn't sort of say, you know, you are this. It says we've all got access to all 4 of these energies, and we explore what those energies might show up like and what the strengths might be, but also what the potential challenges might be. So every one of those energies will have another side to it. And depending on whether we're under pressure or depending on how we're feeling that day, those colour energies can show up differently. So really knowing how to access them, how to dial one up or dial one down to meet the person that you're interacting with, can really, really change the way you communicate and make you very, very effective. We also have loads of follow-up for this. So this can be made really cultural, and I think quite easily you can make it quite cultural. Once everybody's got that sort of shared language and is talking about energies and how people might prefer to be communicated with, it allows you to really mindfully prepare yourself for every interaction without loads of work. It doesn't mean you have to sit for hours. You can just for a couple of minutes before you speak to somebody think, where do I think they're coming from today? What energy do they need from me today for me to really connect with them? And I think when you put that into a team context, it's absolutely game changing.
Certainly for us at 68 people with our own team, it's allowed us to give feedback in the form of colour, rather than saying, you know, that's annoying. It might be more like, you know, I think you might need to turn up your green energy when you are in that, you know, in that situation. So that's been really powerful for us. And
it's such a nice way, that, isn't it? It doesn't talk, it's not talking about your personality. It's not saying you need to change. It's talking about a behaviour so easily you can make it about a behaviour and an energy to dial up. So you're not sort of saying that's wrong, which I think makes it so powerful and so accessible. So superstar hunting, we then move into recruitment. This is obviously our solution to probably arguably one of the industry's biggest challenges. Certainly in the last 12 months, it has been. And so many managers don't have confidence in their own recruitment process or what that should look like, or, you know, like Abby said before, there is a lot of just kind of go with your gut, sit down, see what you think, get them in. And a lot of, obviously, you know, recruiting and hiring people way too quickly, or in you know, emergency hiring, ready for the weekend. So this, you know, this session isn't about everything that's being done wrong, but what it asks the team to think about is what can they change, what can they do differently to get a better result. So if something isn't working, what can we do to make that better and easier for them in the long run? In this approach to recruitment that makes it a priority rather than a chore. So it's really about putting this at the forefront of your to-do list instead of the bottom, which I think we've all been guilty of as operators, and really taking this seriously and putting the candidate experience front and centre. And interview skills and technique that allows, you know, someone to be really confident in the decision they're making. They're not sort of just going, it's the best of a bad bunch, or only 2 people turned up, so I'm going to take one of them on. We really go through some very skillful questioning that can be used in an interview that would allow you to really know, I'm pretty confident this person's the right person and I can make them an offer confidently. And the feedback we get from this is always that it's very eye-opening. I think to hear from a recruitment agency how they do things is always, I mean, mind-blowing actually a lot of the time. But it can be a bit challenging. We are sort of asking people to address the way they do things. But the best feedback that we get after the sessions, in the following weeks, is that people have then adopted some of those practices they were perhaps a little bit reticent of, and they see a real change. So one team that we worked with a few weeks ago were really not into some of the stuff. They weren't sure it was going to work, and they put it into practice, and 3 weeks later they'd filled a role that they'd had empty for months and months, because they've been able to just get people into interview. So once we've looked at getting the right people on board, we've got our superstars in, we then move into the art of training. So this is our train the trainer, but it is a little different, I think, from other train the trainers, in that it really talks about practical, impactful, efficient training. How do you actually do it on the job? Rigid training structures often hinder trainers, especially if they're not very experienced. So we talk about the art of it, the art of knowing what it is you need someone to learn, what do you need to prioritise, and then how do you adapt what you're doing to make sure that happens in an ever-changing environment. Nothing ever goes to plan on shift. There's no point in giving somebody a 10 till 5, this is what you're going to do, because it's not going to happen. So how do you give trainers a skill set that allows them to adapt in real time and still get the end result that they need in a short period of time, or a relatively short period of time? And obviously excellent training is going to help with turnover, and is definitely going to help that sort of candidate experience those first few weeks, where somebody's given the confidence to do the job properly because they're being given excellent training. So we do go through some of the theory, because it's important, obviously, and we talk about why training is so important and why all of those models exist that are often taught in Train the Trainer. So we talk through the conscious competence model, we talk through Honey and Mumford learning styles, but then we talk about what that means when you're trying to teach somebody to make a Negroni. Well, how does this actually apply to working with somebody in a hands-on environment? And so the learning cycle that you can see there on that slide is what we work with. We move out of action and into review. So we start to try and make learning proactive. And that means that we have to think about picking a few milestones that we need to hit. It doesn't need to be 3 or 4 weeks of training. We don't need to hit everything, because often we can't. So we pick and prioritise, and then we make that proactive. So instead of letting somebody have a go and then finding out they don't know how to do something, we are proactive in our learning, and we start with, what do they know? What do I need to teach them? Let's walk through it first together. And in that way, we're protecting them and we're protecting our guests, and making sure that that experience, while somebody is in training, is one that boosts their confidence and makes them really enjoy their job, as opposed to something that starts to just make them terrified to be near anybody. It's really practical. We talk about hands-on training, we actually have a go at it. So by the end of that session, it's always really, really well received with both managers and trainers. I've even had an accounts manager recently message me, said that they taught somebody how to use an Excel sheet with the technique, and it worked. So,
and you got 100% NPS.
We've got 100% NPS, yeah.
No, 100% NPS.
No. Then, radically candid leadership. I feel like this is what everyone's sick of me talking about.
My favourite.
But yeah, I'm really, really passionate about this one, and it's easily our most requested. I don't think it matters what level of management you're at. Sort of having a real in-depth conversation about how to give honest, impactful feedback is really, really powerful. But I think that initial step into management is where this really, really is game-changing, because that sort of step into suddenly being in charge of people, and a lot of the time they were your mates, or they still are your mates, because that's the nature of hospitality, can make this really tricky. And so we talk about how you can have those conversations, how you can feel confident having those conversations, without any worry about damaging the relationship or feeling like people are going to leave, which is probably where the nervousness comes from sometimes. But we also talk about the fact that being candid isn't just about being honest and direct when people are getting it wrong. It's also about being really intentional and really specific when we are delivering praise as well, and how we can make sure people feel both boosted, but that they know where they stand and they know what they need to work on. That can be missing. So through the session, we call on Simon Sinek, Brené Brown, Adam Grant to really explore some kind of key leadership skills. But the core of the session is based on Radical Candid by Kale Scott. So we talk about these 4 types of feedback, these behaviours that show up when we're delivering feedback. And we talk about getting that perfect balance between caring personally and making sure the team know that they're cared for and that what you're trying to tell them is to help them. But that allows us to challenge directly and deal with issues as and when we see them, as opposed to kind of building them up or making a thing of it and then feeling like it's too... we're almost too scared to touch it then.
Is it the end of the shit sandwich?
It is definitely the end of the sandwich, please. So feedback's always incredible for this. I recently had a session with a training manager sat in the session, and he messaged me recently to tell me that we did the session on the Thursday, and on the Saturday had to sit down and have a really tricky conversation that he'd been avoiding for weeks. And after this session, he just did it. He said it went really, really well because it gave him the freedom to just say what he needed to say in a way that made that person feel empowered, supported, and they knew what they needed to do differently. And I think that's the best kind of feedback you could get, really. And then lastly, and I'll stop waffling on, we've got developing a high performance mindset. This is probably our broadest session. We cover quite a lot of stuff in here, but it really nicely wraps up when it's used at the end of the Future Leaders Programme. It's a really nice wrap up and kind of talks through a lot of stuff that people tend to go on and explore further for themselves. So we talk through 5 traits of a high performance mindset. They're obviously not exhaustive, but they're definitely really tangible things that you can see an impact from. We talk about self-awareness, so we start here with insights and we finish here, and we do some self-reflection, a bit of intention setting about the sort of manager we want to be. We talk about living at cause and having a proactive mindset and a solution-orientated mindset. So really starting to think about what can I do differently to make a change, as opposed to feeling done to. We do touch on time management, but we really talk about the fact that you can't manage time, you can't create time, no more time is going to appear. So how can you be really, really effective in the time that you've got? And ultimately, that requires delegation. So we talk quite a lot about how you can be very, very effective in delegating to people. We talk about building trust. We explore the connection between trust and high performance, and why creating a team that trusts each other and trusts you has such an impact on performance, and the effect of removing that trust. So when we're in a leadership position, we have the power to remove trust from the team and what that can do, and how we can avoid it. And then lastly, we just finish up with some resilience. We talk about what it is, how do we build it, how do we maintain our responsibility, how do we maintain resilience, and we talk about our responsibility for our team's resilience. We have to help them maintain that, and why it matters so much to the business. So it is always a really impactful one, and the loveliest feedback for this is always when managers send me pictures of their briefings and their management meetings for weeks afterwards, and they take sections out of that to talk with their larger team and explore that themselves.
Amazing. And then Callie's going to talk a little bit about we are always taking feedback, not only on the courses that we our existing portfolio, but on how we can develop what we offer the industry. So Callie's going to talk to you a little bit about what our plans are for the second half of this year and the first half of 2024. I can't believe I said 2024 already.
2024. So we've been approached multiple times now about some conflict management training. So we are doing some research and we are putting that together. And we obviously, like everything else, we're going to make it really hospitality specific. We're going to talk about how you deal with guests being tricky, but also how you deal with interpersonal conflict. So when there's conflict in a team, how do we manage that? We have partnered up with Jen Ragg, who is the former sales director at Be@One and Flight Club, and we are going to put together some sales and hospitality training. And we'll do that in 2 parts. One that is directed towards sales managers who or anybody who has responsibility for sales, and then also the operating team that work alongside them, and how we can sort of create a better connection between the 2.
And that came about because we did quite a big piece of research in our sales and marketing recruitment function, Studio 68, and identified that there's a real gap for really good sales training that was that retained sales managers, that really kind of upskilled them to deliver what was quite being asked of them, which was quite a lot.
Yeah. And then we're going to look at a session called Getting Shit Done.
Working title.
Working title, but I really like it. we've been asked again to look at creating a systematic approach to completing projects. So how can we put a workshop together for teams to get from one end to the other of a project?
Yeah, and so there's a consistent approach within any organisation of how I approach a project, how I set success criteria, how I plan it and review it. That's come out this year certainly as an area, as a challenge for operators.
And then finally, I've recently just been away to complete the certification to become a LEGO Series Play Facilitator. And it's an amazing tool that allows you to use a kind of hands-on approach, which I think really suits hospitality, to work through really complex challenges. So by using the Lego bricks and actually building as you're kind of working through something, it allows you to access flow really quickly, which is pretty incredible. So we'll be working that into some sessions, I think, this year, and using that technique as well to kind of elevate the workshops.
Just to give you an idea of some of the clients that we've worked with in the last 12 months, so there's a real range actually. We piloted 5 leadership programs, and there's a range of clients that we've done from the kind of experience sector to hotels, to the pub sector. And I think one of the things that we're really conscious of is feeling like we're part of that organisation. There's no point in us banging on about something that isn't relevant or that isn't spoken about within that company. So making sure that to a certain extent our tone changes. It's a much more formal setting in a hotel than it is in Junkyard Golf, and so I think it's really important that the delegates feel as though we could be part of that organisation. So we've got a real mix of clients, and we really enjoy, whether it's from small independents to big hotel corporates. So in terms of the small print on how we charge for our workshops, I mentioned that we do public workshops, and there's an events calendar on our website as to what we've got coming up, and they're probably suitable for if you have maybe 2 or 3 managers that you'd like to send along, or you're an independent organisation where you just like to send one person to come and learn something specific. They're really fun, and actually the power in having comfort, in fact, in having other people in the room, kind of sitting down next to somebody and go, God, they've got that problem too, thank God. It's really powerful. Our half-day workshops, we have around 3 to 4 hours, and we charge £1,200 for those. And then the full-day workshops, which is art of training, that's £1,500. Insights Discovery, both Callie and I are facilitators for that, and that the cost for Insights Discovery is £2,500 for the facilitation plus the profile cost. The profile part is the most amazing part of the day, where each delegate gets it's around a 20-page document about who they are, and we get kind of 97% accuracy on these, and they are it's a tool for life, really.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've put together a discounted rate for the Future Leaders programme. So this is probably most suitable for managers who are maybe coming up through the ranks, or assistant managers or AGMs. We can make it a GM's programme. It's probably more relevant for GMs who maybe haven't had previous leadership training, and we kind of put that together so they do that over 6 months, and it's kind of have a nice little graduation at the end of it, and that works really well. So that is probably all we've got to say about Class of 68. We have done some other types of projects, some more bespoke stuff where Callie's gone into, for example, we've just recently done a project with Junkyard Golf where you've gone in and really helps them take their new starter training from from lots of different pieces of paper onto online and making a really incredible journey. So there are other bespoke projects that we can talk about, but they're probably not something that are right for everybody, so not suitable for a webinar. We would like to open the floor up for questions, and probably we can stop sharing this screen out, and we can probably ask people to ask questions directly or put them in the comments group. Does anybody have any questions? Everybody now goes totally silent and
leave the room.
Exit the building. If anybody would like to ask us anything, I'll go quiet for a minute if everyone wants to turn their mic on and ask us anything. Hi, George.
Hi, ladies. First quick question, and then there's a few others for me. Number one, if I start with the boring one first, I've seen your prices, but in the £1,200 and £1,500, how many people is that for?
Good question. It's up to 15 delegates. The 15 is really based on the benefit to the delegates. Look, if somebody comes to us and says we've got 16 or 17, we're not going to get sweaty about it, but it's more to do with actually the airtime that the delegates get, that we think 15 is a really good number.
And you're trying to balance that between the quality of the time you can spend with people with just how many quantity you've got in the room, really.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
Fine. And then the other boring one is just kind of the logistics one. Is that the price for them coming to you, or for you coming to them?
And so we travel to where you need to be. Obviously, we don't get involved in kind of room setup and room hire, and that's up to the operator, but we're happy to travel.
Okay, lovely. I'll let someone else have a go at asking questions. I'll come back with some more in a minute.
Thanks, George. Hi, Shal. Did you have a question?
No, it's just really, really interesting. And I suppose it's kind of like, at what level? I'm currently consulting opening a restaurant in London, and they've got zero budget, classic. We're really struggling with recruitment, and we're just getting nothing through the door. And I was just curious, kind of, at what stage do you find the training element of it attracts people and attracts candidate? Is it something that, if we're to say this is a really big part of the job and we kind of really shouted about it in the advert, do you think that that would maybe help the uptake? Side note, the site is in Leytonstone, which unfortunately it will be Peckham at some point, but I'm wondering if that's the location as well. Isn't it a big challenge? Just for me, training is incredibly important. I was just interested whether you think it's something that can help with recruitment, getting them through.
Yeah, I definitely think, look, how you do anything is how you do everything. And I think if you're showing outwardly that you invest in people through training, then I think that can only be beneficial in terms of attraction. I would probably say though that it's not going to attract everyone. So, having something within your advert or recruitment offering that actually offers different, one of them might be training that might tick one person's box, but then flexibility might be another person's, another thing that ticks another person's box. So having that combination within an advert for sure. I mean, within our training, we're planning to do some public courses around the recruitment, and so that might be something that your client can come along to. We're talking that about candidate attraction and about the power of an advert, and some different kind of philosophies around recruitment. So maybe that's something that the public courses are £125 per delegate, so it's actually much more accessible for one-off restaurants or independents.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I could probably come along to that myself. That sounds brilliant. Thank you.
Perfect. I think we might have had a question in the comments quickly. Was there a question in there?
Yeah, from Isabel.
Yeah, what's the question?
Says, you clearly build some amazing training packages. How do you prioritise which course you develop first / balance all of your projects you have as a brand? I'm currently hit with a nasty cold, so we'll stay hidden behind my house.
Thanks, Isabel. We don't sleep.
Ever.
I can understand that. We do get involved in a lot of projects. We've got a big team. We are now 20 of us in total, and we've got some amazing people within our team. So we spread the workload, but how to prioritise.
I mean, I think it's also important to remember that when we were creating the initial workshops, that was all I was doing. So that was my full-time job for 4 months.
Each one probably took you about 3 or 4 weeks to write.
Just to write it, and then there was a pilot process that So I think personally, I think that's probably the most powerful thing about it. Having been a head of training, you never have the time to do that. No one is ever going to give you 16 weeks to go and sit and write a training program. So hopefully we've done that bit for you, I guess.
Okay, thank you everybody for joining us. And if you are hearing this and you haven't joined us, I hope you've enjoyed it. And yeah, we are going to send out some information and some links, and yeah, open to any questions privately following the webinar. So thank you so much and happy Friday.
Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.